So recently, after years of hand-wringing over this, I finally decided to buy one of the rarest games that exists, and it's called Mr. Gimmick. It's an NES game that was only released in Scandinavia of all places. Gimmick was made by Sunsoft, who also made Batman, Blaster Master, and a bunch of other great Nintendo games. I'll show it to you here as I just got this in the mail. I bought it off eBay, which is where I've bought many of my rarer games in the past. And here it is. So something I've been really hesitant about lately is buying more expensive games, i.e. titles over $50, because there are so many reproductions out there that it's tough to know if what you're getting is actually legit. I managed to pick up the other rarest NES games years ago before this became widespread, but nowadays if you search for something like Little Samson, you'll definitely have to sift through an army of fake games before you find an authentic copy. Most of these are listed right off the bat as reproductions, but others contain no such language, or they hide it deep in the description. Finding the rarest games in the wild is pretty much impossible, and the really uncommon ones don't often show up in game stores or anything, so their market is almost entirely online. Mr. Gimmick never comes up for auction, like I've been tracking it for years, and this is the first time I've seen it without some crazy buy it now price. So with all that in mind, even though I was a little hesitant about its authenticity, I figured it was time to take a chance, and hopefully if I can ascertain that it's fake, I can return it, and if it's real, then great. There were a couple of things about this cartridge that I thought may be dubious, so I wanted to make a video to hopefully point out some things to look for when buying rarer retro games. The first thing I noticed, and it's going to be kind of hard to see here, is the connectors. Look how fucking shiny that is. I've looked at a million games, and they're not usually that bright, which tells you that there may be a brand new board inside. The brass pins of NES games get super gunky with use and with storage, and even if you're diligent with cleaning them, they still tend to get pretty dull over time. But hopefully this is just a really rarely played game, and that's why it looks so good. Hopefully. The second thing I noticed was the back of the cartridge. Mr. Gimmick was only released in PAL regions, which are Australia and Europe, and as such there are major differences in label art with some games, but also subtle changes like the letters A or B on the label, which tell you which PAL region the game is for, and the writing on the back here, which is often in other languages like Italian, French, or German, depending on where the game was released. Here's a copy of Crackout, which is a PAL exclusive, and you can see the letter A on the front, and the back has warnings written in English and in Italian. Here's the back of Mr. Gimmick. Unless Gimmick was the one PAL title with an all-English back label, this is an American shell in the back here. That's not great. Here's a copy of Wall Street Kid for comparison, and you can see that they are identical. And yeah, that's a little disconcerting. Still, maybe the original label was jacked up and whoever owned this at some point decided it would look better with, I don't know, a Mario Duck Hunt caboose swapped in? Let's hope. The label itself does look pretty good. There's little scratches on the veneer that are a little hard to show y'all, but that's actually a good sign because it means that the game is used. I've also compared the overall look with images of authentic carts online. It's still possible that this is a really good counterfeit, but I actually think that this may be the real deal. For the front label anyway. So the best thing you can do if you're really curious and you have your doubts is to open up the game cartridge. For that, all you need is a special screwdriver bit that can open these star-shaped security screws on the back of the NES games. I couldn't find mine, so I had to order another one off Amazon, but they're only about $10 or so. So you flip the game over, unscrew these 3 bad boys here, or 5 bad boys if it's an older NES title like Gyromite or something, and let's take a look. Okay, this is promising. If you look here where it says PAL, this is a legitimate chip. That doesn't necessarily mean it's legitimate for this game, but it's a legitimate Nintendo chip. Again, if someone was a really talented counterfeiter, they could fake this. But fake copies never have this level of detail, and you should be able to tell immediately if a chip was made in China or something. You can also see a tiny little Nintendo logo, which is a little hard to see, but again, that's another authentic marker. On this little guy here, which is a sound chip that was made specifically for Mr. Gimmick, and is a big part of why it's hard to fake, it says Sunsoft. I watched some videos, and you can reprogram all the parts of Batman Return of the Joker, which was also made by Sunsoft, to replicate Gimmick. And thus, a fake would also have this Sunsoft chip since they're both from the same company, but the main ROM chips here would say Sunsoft. I think. So unless someone on the internet convinces me otherwise, I think this is a legit copy. Yay! Seriously, I know there are people out there that are experts at this, and unless you really just want to troll me and be a total dick, please tell me if this is not real or not. It may not be too late for me to get my money back. I've got a bunch of PAL titles, so I'm just going to grab one of the cheaper ones and do a swap-a-roo. This is Konami Hyper Soccer, which is also PAL Region B, and it's actually really rad. I'm just going to operate it and switch this backing piece with this American one. Sorry, bud. You can see when I open this game, there's a few pieces that are broken off and just rattling around in there. We're just going to leave those in there since the game still works, and fuck it, who cares? And now that we've reassembled this Scandinavian Frankenstein, let's pop it in the top loader and see if it works. The Model 2 or top-loading NES is great. Not only does it work better than the original toaster, it can also play PAL titles. For the most part. Some, like the Disney games, bug out like crazy, while others just look like they need to be blown on a few more times. Mr. Gimmick is probably one of the latter. Totally playable, but there's still a bit of coding crunchiness happening at the bottom of the screen here. Sorry to all the tube television purists out there that are probably scoffing at my use of a modern TV for this, but I'm lazy. Sorry. So there you go. Minor heart attack averted. Next week, I'll be back to talking about more obscure games that are thankfully so unpopular that no one has bothered to make fakes of them yet. But until then, thanks for watching.